What the modern day culture wants me to be as a man doesn't lead to any fulfillment. It's okay to want to be the guy who can fight. It's okay to want to have the big muscles. It's okay to want to have the pretty, submissive, giving girlfriend. It's okay to seek these archetypal desires of men. But modern society has tried to say, no, that you're a bad, unethical person.
How did we get here?
I have a bit of a theory on that. Politically, it's a lot easier to get people to vote for you if you are scared, divorced from any sense of faith, unhappy in a relationship. You're going to do what you're told if you are beaten down as a man. No leadership anywhere in the world wants men to be very much faith-based, bound together with their other brothers, free-thinking, armed, capable of combat. So that's the political piece. And a lot of men, when they get married, they become self-regulating citizens, right? You can hook up with a woman, but you've got to keep her happy or she can take half your stuff and you're the bad guy who can't see your kids. What a perfect way to control men.
What's private security like?
15 years, lived in Iran, Iraq, Syria, Saudi, saw the first shots of the Yemen war with my own eyes. But the private security sector is where I really shine because I do have a problem with authority. And also I like money, I like getting paid.
You're a tailor now through a very interesting set of circumstances.
Am I a tailor? I don't know. I'm a guy who likes hanging out and building wardrobes with his mates. This is the modern day armor for modern day combat that is business and relationships.
You mentioned faith. This is where your story, as interesting and unpredictable as it is, takes another unpredictable turn.
Islam is the only way to fight against evil. I realize it's a lot deeper than what the Westerners conceive a religion to be. It's a system for life. It is the user manual to the human experience. Every component of your life, from your relationships to your business to your daily routines, is written very clearly in order to be the optimized human. For a man to be fulfilled ultimately, we need mission, we need challenge, we need struggle. That is our primary indicator of whether or not we'll be fulfilled as humans.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Joule Sullivan, aka the sartorial shooter, the former soldier, security specialist, and problem solver turned high-end bespoke tailor. You spent 15 years working in intelligence and private security, operating in high-risk regions across the Middle East and Africa. Your work included crisis management, security, close protection, kidnappings, and extortion cases. In recent years, you became popular on social media due to your close relationship and outspoken defense of Andrew Tate. You are the owner of Custom Made Reality, one of the most popular tailor shops in Dubai, where you offer customers not just style solutions, but a complete personal brand upgrade. You believe the West is in rapid decline, while the UAE stands as a beacon of opportunity, security, and prosperity, offering a thriving environment to grow, succeed, and achieve one's potential. You ultimately believe that men should embrace their innate masculinity, face their fears, work harder than everybody else, and take on tough situations in order to truly understand themselves and unlock their full potential. Joule, welcome to London Real in Dubai.
Honored to be here, brother. Been
Great to have you.
watching your content for many years, mate.
Thank you.
You've profiled me quite well. Was that you or a team member?
I've been watching you for a while.
Appreciate you, brother. Much
So,
respect, mate.
first things first, I mean, how do I look?
Incredible. As I was saying earlier, a bit confronting for me. I'm usually the one who people are looking at as, wow, he's dressed kind of loud. Whereas today, I'm going to have to give it to you, bro. You've absolutely destroyed the tailor in terms of making a statement. Well done.
Well, thank you. It wasn't the intention, or maybe it was.
Maybe it was.
Maybe it was. You know, I about 10 years ago, I had a crazy guy on my show who probably got me dressing this way.
Okay.
And he's called the $1 Trillion Man. He's got a castle in Scotland. He's a very outspoken,
Yes.
older man named Dan Pena.
Indeed.
And
I love the way he dresses. Amazing.
yeah, he's kind of like the grandfather we all had that gave it to us straight. And he's the guy that most people ask me about on the streets when they pull me aside.
Interesting.
So very politically incorrect. They'll never make one like that again.
Indeed.
And I started using his tailor, or as I like to joke, he now uses my tailor. And he always used to say, you know, for a young man, you've got two ways to make a first impression: what you wear, and then what comes out of your pie hole. And so at least you can control one of those things.
Exactly.
And,
I like it.
But like I said, I was telling you earlier, when I first started the show, I would wear G-Star raw trousers and skateboard t-shirts. And then I kind of morphed into this, and now it's just become part of who I am. And I think it's really important.
There's power in the suit, right?
There is.
There really is. I had a similar arc as well, in that I grew up very rough, always second-hand clothing. And when I left the military and went into intelligence work, I was taught how to dress. As army guys, I was a soldier. They have the fast eyes, they're a bit tight, you know, in their bodies. You need to teach them to relax, and also need to teach them how to dress in a classic sense so that you can ultimately interact with upper society. That's a lot of what especially civilian intelligence agencies do. And so I noticed, as long as I didn't say anything, as long as nothing came out of my pie hole, and I was dressed in a nice navy, you know, blazer, some chinos or dark denim and a nice shirt, all of a sudden these restaurants that I felt uncomfortable in, all of a sudden I belonged. The people who would look down on me and patronize me because of my terribly sort of low-class way of dressing would all of a sudden think, well, welcome in, have a seat. Again, as long as I didn't say anything. So I had to learn how to make sure what came out of my pie hole was congruent to dressing well. But the ROI, especially as a young man, in putting energy into learning, especially the classic, traditional, conservative way of dressing, which we are not representing in any way right now.
Maybe the tailoring is.
The
Maybe not
tailoring's
the
on
colors.
point. The cut of that suit is gorgeous. Props to your tailor there. But yeah, I've seen so many young men come in, and we've taken them through the process of, you know, where are you going to dress well, what sort of image do you want to put forward. They leave feeling like $1 million. Now, our man Andrew Tate, he often says there's no downside to feeling like you're the man. I believe there's no downside to looking like you're the man, unless you're in London and someone's coming after your watch, and you know you don't want to look like you have wealth. But generally speaking, the confidence that comes from, and the projection of essentially what is social intelligence, of class, of refinement, through, you know, not saying a word. How else are you going to do that? You don't take a car into the restaurant. You know, everyone, especially in Dubai, has a nice watch nowadays. That's not the flex it used to be. But dressing well and having a good physique to back that up, you know, a good posture, that dress and bearing, it really does bring massive ROI.
Yeah, massively. And yet when, you know, I look at, you know, my fellow Americans, it's like they're almost going to the other end of the spectrum. It's the race to zero. And you go to places, you know, and the bi-coastal, and everyone is dressing like they're 8 years old again with the baseball caps and the, you know, it's so strange to see.
I have to believe that's a trend and it'll pass. Dressing in a classic sense has been around for a long time. And also, as I'm sure you have, if you look into why we dress the certain ways we do and why we use certain colors, that comes from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I think the classic men's attire will always last. And these tech boy trends, or I'm a fully grown man who dresses like he's, you know, 15, I believe that's a trend. I hope that's a trend that will fade very soon.
Yeah, I hope you're right. You know, we do a lot of stuff in crypto, and I'd say a lot of executives are maybe scared to wear a suit to a crypto event because they want to be seen as the Web3 bro.
Yeah,
and like I went the other way. I dress like this, and I go in, and a lot of young men come up to me and asking me questions. You know, they're just attracted to this, and oh, where'd you get the suit, and just like maybe they're attracted to other aspects of, you know, masculinity, and I think they get it. You know?
It's archetypal. There's power in the suit, always has been. This is the modern day armor for modern day combat that is business and relationships. We don't put on the chainmail and the big helmet anymore. This is our armor for facing the outside world. So I think every man should put energy into it. If you want to rock a t-shirt and be that bro who relies on a nice watch to project the value, all right, cool, but you're missing a trick. This sort of dress, even if someone doesn't know or like fashion, it impacts people on a deeper level than just being in a black t-shirt with a Richard Mille on your wrist.
Yeah, it's true. You know, Guy Ritchie was on Joe Rogan's show and he wore a suit. And Joe couldn't really get it because he probably has the bro dress, right? And then Guy kind of schooled him and he said, no, you know, in America maybe more so, that the suit was taken away from you as a male and fed back to you as a uniform. But he said it's ultimately was always a way for you to show your status, express yourself, show the world who you are that day. And at the end of it, you could see Joe really understood what he was talking about.
Yeah, no,
I don't know if he bought a suit, but...
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I see what you mean. And I remember on that conversation, he talked about the fact that he particularly likes the pocket square, because that is a way of showing you're wearing this outfit because you can, not because you have to. You're owning the look. I remember that. It was quite a formative conversation for me.
Yeah, it's powerful. Guy has some really interesting intellectual property.
Definitely.
You know, besides just being a movie director.
Master storyteller.
Yeah, and so when I started wearing these, it came a habit, and then it was my way to show the team and the world that I'm ready. When I walk in the office that morning, when I walk out of the house, I'm ready, and everyone can see I'm ready. I'm not having a bad day, I'm not phoning it in, I'm wearing the suit, and I'm ready to go. And so it's just become like a thing. And
yeah, it is. I was corporate for a long time, executive level, global at one point. And I was always the guy who was dressed as if he could go and interview perfectly that day. That's going to lead to people appreciating you more, needing to give you better bonuses, give you promotions. If you really look ready to dominate and such that the competition might want to come and poach you, it's not going to do bad things for your career, right?
Yeah. But you're a tailor now through a very interesting set of circumstances. And I was wondering if you could maybe take us back to, you know, the teenage Joule in Australia and tell us kind of why you went down this military route. I think you posted recently an old picture on your Instagram of a youngish Joule, maybe he was in his early 20s. I think you might have made a reference that he might have been a little bit of a angry man, maybe a misguided young man,
Yep, I'll say that.
like many are. Maybe you could take me back to that, Joule.
Yeah, indeed. So single parent upbringing for the most part. You know, the sort of typical welfare raised, no real masculinity in the house, no real femininity in the house. The West is pretty lost in that front. And so there was always the search for what should I be, how should I use all this masculine energy? Now, alhamdulillah, with my son, he has his boxing, he has conversations with his dad. We are channeling his masculine energy in a healthy way. As a teenager with no outlet, the military was the only solution for me. I'm very grateful for it. Like, you think you're some tough kid, go join the military, hang out with combat veterans. You'll learn pretty quickly you're not that tough. It doesn't matter how many fisticuffs you've gotten into in the street when you're talking about people who've been through X amount of combat operations. So that definitely grounded me. I remember when I was signing up, I was told that I had scored IQ high enough to be a fighter pilot. Why would I want to be an infantry soldier? To which I replied, to kill the enemy, sir. Which is a line I took from a book anyway. But I wanted to learn the art of combat before going into anything else. Did that, was a great experience, physically very demanding, great brotherhood. You know, that struggle bonding with other men is real. So very grateful for that opportunity. People who say, thank you for your service. It's an honor, and it is a gift to a man's development to serve in a military. I don't think it's something people need to be thankful personally. Although obviously a lot of people have given a lot more to that machine than I have, and I in turn am grateful for that. But pretty quickly I was noticed as someone who had a talent for languages. So I spent, I think, a year and a half of my life in language school, which was pretty cool. Tetum, which is the language of East Timor, then Farsi and Dari, which is Iran, Afghanistan, respectively. Taken into military intelligence, and from there into, we'll just say, the intelligence world more broadly. Dropped the uniform, spent more time, I've got to be careful what I talk about here, obviously. Spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and from there transitioned into the private security sector. And that's, I'll say, look, I was decent as a soldier. I think I was fairly good when it came to human intelligence, but the private security sector is where I really shine, because I do have a problem with authority. And also I like money. I like getting paid. So the private security sector was always the logical place that I'd end up in. 15 years, lived in Iran, Iraq, Syria, Saudi. Saw the first shots of the Yemen war with my own eyes. You know, a lot of good stories that came out of it, which typically I don't talk about, especially not with a bunch of cameras here. But happy to discuss what's reasonable and professional to discuss. And after a certain point of just seeing what I view as sort of the darker side of humanity, you spend a lot of time in conflict zones, you really do realize how evil humans are. I wanted to retire. alhamdulillah, I had a very well-paid corporate job and a bunch of my own businesses, weapons and tactics training company, investigations company, security consultancy. They all became, you know, 7-figure businesses of their own right, which is great. And so I was like, okay, time to pull the trigger. What do? I don't believe in retirement. I'm sort of done with security work, and I've always liked tailoring. So I'd say, am I a tailor? I don't know. I'm a guy who likes hanging out and building wardrobes with his mates, building outfits. It's a very satisfying process, as I'm sure you appreciate. And so that's how I spend my days. A lot of focus on faith, family, and trying to back off on this constant focus, you know, I think all men like us have, which is get more money, get more money. I'm not beyond money, but I'm at the point now where there's, as I'm sure you can appreciate, diminishing return on solely focusing on money. I want to use my days in a more quality way than just getting that bag. That's the current focus.
Which is an interesting evolution, because you know you're younger than most men who have that realization. You're early 40s, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I'd say a lot of men have that realization in 50s and 60s.
True. I think I've taken a lot of chances, and I think I've attained a very solid financial independence earlier than I ever thought was possible, which helps. It's easy to not worry about money once you got money. Man, my whole life was don't have money, need to get money.
Yeah.
And I think and a lot of people have said to me, I was that poor kid, I feel poor, you know, in my heart, what do I do about it? Mantras won't help you, you know, mindset, you know, manifestation, get money. That's how you don't feel poor. But at a certain point you need to realize that there is diminishing returns. As you know, that when you go from say 10 to 15 M up to 20 or 30 or 40, your life doesn't change, you know? So I think at that point, I don't see it done very often, but I think at that point that the sensible or noble thing to do is, all right, how can I give back? And what else matters in life other than just more money and more stuff and a bigger house? I'm actually looking to downsize my houses. I don't need that much space anymore.
Isn't that interesting? You know, I was trying to tell some crypto bro the other day who bought like a Richard Mille watch, and he was like, do you want one? And I said, you know what? This is how we evolve. No watch, yeah, Timex watch, Rolex, Mille, no watch.
Yeah, there it is, bro.
And I see a lot of guys evolving like that.
It's a real thing.
Where the end is no watch, no car, no house, or whatever. It's just, you know, you're downsizing, maybe because you have other priorities.
Yeah. I've noticed exactly that. A lot of the clients that I've worked with over the years are ultra high net worth individuals, royals, you know, big players who have complex problems that need people like me. And they don't usually wear watches. They have watches, but they don't wear them. It's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, it's interesting too in Dubai, because like you said, sometimes everyone has the watch.
Indeed.
So, you know, when I'm
outside... A lot
outside,
of fake watches here too. My goodness, there's a lot of fakes.
Okay.
It's a real thing.
When I'm outside, I'm the no watch guy.
Yeah, indeed.
Tell me about military. I mean, you can't talk about everything, but you went through probably a lot of self-defining moments.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I went into the military thinking I was sort of tough and thinking I was fit. And especially when you're in infantry. I was in a unit called 1RAR, which is light infantry, specialized in jungle warfare. You get pushed, really, really pushed. And it was great. I think every young man needs that. And I would wish the same for my son in a way that was meaningful, as opposed to, I think a lot of modern day warfare now, especially with Western militaries, it's the machine, it's the military industrial complex. But those skills and experiences you can have specifically as a soldier in a capable military, incredibly defining. The brotherhood that you can experience is very real. A lot of veterans really lack that when they get out. They really lack that feeling of having their boys next to them. Because at a certain point, when you're going through it, you don't really care about the Hollywood narratives that you've got to save your country, or with respect, rarely do you get kitted up and go on patrol for Queen and country. You're doing it because you're with your boys. You're doing it for the man next to you, which I think is a beautiful thing to experience. In terms of physical effects, pretty much everyone who does the soldiering thing properly will get injured, unfortunately. Typically the spine will be affected, or the knees, so that's something that you will pay for the rest of your life. But overall, I'm very grateful for that experience. It was amazing.
It's interesting because I've had quite a few Navy SEALs and former Green Berets on, and they're probably the only people that talk about evil. You know, Jocko talks about this, and Tim Kennedy, and they said there's evil in the world. I don't talk to many guests that say that, because I don't think they've seen it. And I would say I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, indeed, there's collective evil in this world. When you spend a lot of time in places that are either failed states or on their way to being failed states, or dictatorships that are sort of holding on and losing ground by the day, or active war zones, you see a lot of things that, as per the Western paradigm, shouldn't be happening. We live in a very advanced society. You know, we have incredible medical care. Why is there a kid cut in half over there? It doesn't make logical sense. Whereas when you've spent time in those parts of the world, Especially with me in the private security sector as well, I'd have big teams of locals. I'd have, whether they're drivers or CPOs, close protection officers, or even the cook would have stories of his family being affected, right? So when you're around the locals and you're seeing how they're impacted by years and years of this instability and conflict, it really does make you question the worldview that you have growing up in the West, that humans are inherently good, governments want to look after you, taxes are there for a good reason. It's a bit of a red pill, if you will, on the inherent good of humans, and especially politicians. Anyone who's spent enough time in conflict zones will have a pretty healthy distaste for the political class.
Because they're making
Investment Club. Today, I consider it the best investment that I've ever made. We get 4 projects presented a week by their associated CEOs. Personally, I'm completely blown away by the quality of these projects, and I know of nowhere else where I would be given this same opportunity. Each week that passes, I feel more appreciative of the fact that I'm a member of this group. The vibe was just tremendous. Everybody's on the same wavelength. We just clicked. Everybody listened to each other, enjoyed their company. It was just magical, magical. Take action. Don't take my word for it. Due diligence you need to do. And I really hope that someday down the road I see you in the club. It far exceeded expectations, without question.
life and death situations with
for
just
other people. Yeah.
right, and sometimes for their own benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not sending their own kids off to die.
Right.
That song War Pigs by Black Sabbath, very relevant to this day. The generals sitting around a fire sending young youths off to die. That's exactly what's happening to this day, even though it was written about the Vietnam War.
Is it hard sometimes to come back to normal society when you've seen that darkness and to try to look at the good in all of people? Because you can't unsee that stuff.
Yeah, indeed. It hasn't been for me. I've got a lot of brothers who gave a lot more to that system than me. I wasn't special forces. I was infantry, then intelligence. So some guys have really given a lot more of their souls and their minds to the system than me. So I won't speak for them. But for me, especially spending years and years in these places as a civilian, as a private security, let's say security manager or security contractor, many different terms it's given. I don't think humans are good anymore. It's not a struggle. I think humans are, I'm not going to swear, but I think humans are, I think they're self-centered. I think they want the most gain for the least effort. I think their empathy is very tribal. They care about their own people, they don't care about anyone else. I think we are inherently violent, dangerous animals, and I'm okay with that. I'm competent in that realm, and I think every man should be. But to think otherwise, I think is quite naive. I don't believe that Western society is in any way civilized. You look at Hurricane Katrina, when there was no water and power for a few days. People were being cut up and murdered in the streets. I was on ground in numerous countries during the Arab Spring, assisting with numerous evacuations. Egypt overnight went from being one of the most heavily policed states in the world. So they said 1 in 70 people within Egypt were either police or intelligence services or informing into. It's a huge network, taxi drivers, people in restaurants, hotels, huge network of informants to maintain a real secure police state. Overnight that was gone. They were just non-existent, all law enforcement, everything gone. And of course there weren't many firearms, so people were chasing each other down the street with swords. Neighbours were knocking on each other's doors with swords, looking to settle that beef they'd had for years that had been held down because of this police state. So I don't think humans are in any way good or benevolent animals. I think we're evil and dangerous. And you take away the constraints of either a dictatorship, as you want to call it, in developing countries, or the comfort bubble that you see in the West, backed up by the violence of law enforcement being just around the corner. That's when you see real humanity. I don't think there's any argument or counterpoint to be put forward other than the fact that humans are selfish and evil and violent. That's our natural way of being. That's why we have to fight, right? That's why you feel that urge to get into the ring. It's who we are as a species.
And that can be really empowering if you're a male, if you know that's maybe who you are, and then you can start to think about how you can control that man and bring a man that's going to be beneficial to society. And it's not going to be an easy job. It's going to require training and discipline and restraint and
exposure to risk. Yeah, exactly. How do you know that you can keep a cool head and execute your training, maintain situational awareness when there's bits of hot metal flying around if you haven't been in it? You need to be exposed to risk, I think, as a man. There are many different ways to do that.
Okay. Talk about the transition from military to, private life, business, I guess. A lot of A lot of guys can't make that transition.
Indeed, and I've really tried to help mentor a lot of veterans on their way out.
It's interesting because people would look at a veteran or even a special forces guy and think, oh man, they're so good at this. And yet I've heard over and over again, it's a very hard transition to make.
100%, because you're still part of a system. It's uncomfortable. You'll be challenged a lot more than civilian life, but your rent's paid for you, your bills are covered. There's a mess hall to go and eat if you don't feel like cooking. And you are right. Be here at this time. Now we're deploying for this many months. Your life is dictated for you to come out of that. Especially, I find if you've been in the game for more than say 8 to 10 years, it is very difficult to really ever become not that. It's very difficult to transition in the civilian world. For me, it was, I'd say, pretty smooth in that I was schooled on how to be a civilian by intelligence professionals. So I had that, I was civilianized, if you will, so it really helped. But I remember at some point, I'd say 25, 26, and I was just getting rid of in the process of getting rid of the uniform while still in the system. And I went to a friend of mine who I'd met at Krav Maga class, a good friend of mine. I did a lot of that for a good 5 years. It was a big part of my life back in the day. And I said to him, bruv, you work in corporate. Can I come into your office just to see what people are doing in those buildings? As a mid-20s, military guy, I had no idea what people are doing in all these buildings. I literally didn't know. So he brought me in, he sat me down, he said, well, there's an HR function, there's a finance function, there's marketing. And I was like, it's a bit like the military in a way. We have our ops guys, we have our logistics guys, we have soldier management, career management. So it's a lot of what you are doing in the military is very similar to what's in the civilian world, but you're not really aware of that until someone briefs you on it. I'd say a lot of things like a lot of leadership structures, things like crisis communications, things like leadership training that you see in the business world, a lot of it comes directly from the military. But a lot of veterans aren't really aware of that or empowered to say, right, my skills and what I've been through is actually very relevant for this civilian world. I just need to change the way I talk. I need to typically calm down a bit, change the way I dress, and I can actually do very well in this. I am under no illusion that I wouldn't have attained what I've achieved, in the business world if it wasn't for my background, both with the intelligence piece and the military.
Okay, so you kind of unlocked it, looked at it differently.
Yeah, had a lot of help too.
Out.
Had a lot of help.
Okay.
Really fortunate like that. And the good thing about the private security sector is you're working with everyone is a veteran, pretty much, and so they can help you. Hey, man! I remember when I went for my first interview in the private security sector, the first thing that my then boss or boss to be said was, "You're gonna have to grow your hair and relax your dress standards. You look way too green." So I was still even after all the intelligence work, I was still being told, "Mate, you still smell of that kind of guy. We need to bring you down to fit into this high-end corporate environment and to talk to the clients that we have coming in."
Interesting. What's private security like? I think we all think it maybe is this, but maybe it's really this, and I guess it really varies too.
Indeed, huge industry. I mean, you could be a close protection officer who's essentially, I'd say most of close protection is logistics and people skills, and there's a bit of risk awareness as well, a bit of planning, and a little bit of having to act if things go wrong. But most of it is facilitating the life of someone who's very busy, and all the different cars and jets and hotel rooms and everything that's involved in that. I think it's a good job for a young man, but it's very boring very quickly. The way being a bodyguard is glamorized in the movies is not the case. It's long hours. You are support of someone who's going out and building businesses or doing interesting things, and you're just support. So it's a limited career path in that sense. Stepping up when you look at those who are doing security management in hostile environments or being essentially armed close protection officers in conflict zones. Good money if you've just come out of the military. Pretty simple life, plenty of time for the gym. Again, working with lads. It's almost like military-esque, but more cash. So it's not a bad way to do it, but again, it has a shelf life. You'll get bored of it after a while. And then you're looking into the management piece. So that's when you can specialize in certain areas. Perhaps you'll be a physical security manager who sets up large factories or who maintains the security of supply chains and compounds and oil rigs in Africa and so on. You could go into certain areas such as investigations, so when you're looking into fraud or extortion attempts and these sorts of things. You can go into looking into anti-illicit trade, so dealing with smugglers, running essentially intelligence operations to gather information on what smugglers are doing, finding people in the customs and law enforcement agencies of that country who actually care and incentivizing them to go and shut down the smugglers. So it's a massive field. There's so many different things to do. Towards the end of it, I was sort of what is the dream In corporate security, you're in-house. So you're working for a large company and you're their trusted security guy. I had hundreds of staff around the world, a very healthy budget. And that's when you can essentially be transitioning fully into the civilian world. You know, you're not carrying a gun anymore. You will go to bad places and you will deal with interesting things, but you're flying business class. You're getting paid nicely. You've got health insurance and it's secure. A lot of the private security job sector is contract-based. So you have an amazing job, but then it's gone and you're just sitting around waiting for something else to do. So the dream is in-house work with a big company and a big budget and a big team, whether that's your own security company or embedded with a multinational. That's good living. But again, there's a lot of veterans out there. There aren't that many jobs when it comes to proper high-level corporate security or private security sector jobs.
Can it be dangerous or even more dangerous than the military?
Yeah,
because you're in
definitely.
situations
100%.
with no backup and
100%. I'm not the sort of guy to hide behind NDAs, but I am pretty NDA'd up. I was in numerous situations in the private security sector where, there was artillery shells hitting the building I was in, couldn't hear for days. Many contacts, many times, movements had to be interrupted and you have to go the other way because the recce car is being shot at. Like there's a complete lack of infrastructure that would support you if you were in the military. You can't call in QRF, quick response. You don't typically have an eye in the sky telling you what's going on. You don't have top cover or arrangements with the local militaries to come in and support. It's just you and your lads. And if things go wrong, which it does in numerous countries, things can flip quickly. I know of guys who've been stuck when the air corridors have shut in conflicts like Yemen for months on end. So it's a different game, but there's a lot more money involved. So it's dice that most veterans will roll, because especially when you're fresh out of a pretty sharp end or niche area of the military, there aren't that many sort of high money jobs you can just clip straight into, just fit right into.
Yeah, probably very few. Very few jobs you can just clip right
true.
into.
Exactly, and also jobs where you still feel like you're the man. Part of the issue with transitioning to the military is you feel like you're the man, but as soon as that system's taken away from you, you're no longer given that validation that you're the man. So that's what hits people a lot.
Is corporate world just masculinizing?
Sitting behind a desk, dealing with corporate politics and HR policies, it's a lot less satisfying and gratifying if you're that high testosterone man, definitely.
And so here you are, though, kind of at the top of the pyramid, where you're not involved in this kind of direct action, but you still wanted to walk away because it was just the stress you didn't want to deal with anymore.
Again, I don't want to speak too sort of negatively, but high-level security work or I think any work in conflict zones, at a certain point you get tired of it. You are seeing the worst of humanity and you're just dealing with crappy situations and crappy people, if you will, in that if you're investigating murders in a developing country, you're not going to be talking to nice people. If you're responding to extortion attempts in a Soviet country, you're not dealing with positive interactions. If you're investigating staff misconduct and someone's gotten hurt or something's gone missing, it's not good vibes. Maybe I'm 42, getting a bit old now. I like feeling positive in my day to day. When you are day in, day out looking at, not trusting pretty much anybody, looking at things going wrong in difficult places, I think everyone gets sick of it.
It's hard to see you in that. I mean, I can see you there, but you seem to be a guy that really cherishes good vibes and tries to promote the good vibes. And so it's weird to hear that guy over there. It's hard to see that it happened. I mean, I'm sure you're very good at it. But I'm a bit surprised now that you are that default, I want to be around good vibes person, even just a few years later.
Well, I think at a certain point, when you've gone through that struggle pathway as a man, you become more and more protective, and I see this a lot amongst the ultra high net worth of the world, a lot more protective of their energies. Might feel a bit sort of esoteric or a bit hippie, but I know numerous ultra high net worth individuals who make a point of not interacting with more than 10 people unless they really have to. They just don't talk to anyone else. They don't let people in their house unless it's family. They don't go out to restaurants. They're just withdrawn away from everything out there because they just don't like interacting with people who they haven't vetted and they can't trust fully, and they don't respect them and understand how to interact appropriately. I kind of get that. Look, I'm in no way some baller when it comes to financial status, but I am at the point where I'm like, I don't really want to be around negative people, because as mentally sort of tough as you are, we are tribal animals. I mean, you step onto the subway in London, everyone's a bit depressed. It's going to drag your energy down a bit, right? We have the mirror neurons. We feel what the crowd is feeling as a survival mechanism. In the same way, a tribe of gazelles, one of them hears something, the whole tribe, their little, or whatever the flock, I don't know what the term is, all of those gazelles instantly, their ears go up. It's a survival thing. There is an emotional economy that exists. I don't want to be around people who are scamming or conducting acts of violence, all this sort of stuff. Maybe Dubai's maybe soft, but you want a jacket? I'll give you a jacket. I'm a simple tailor. It's beautiful.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm so blessed to do this job where most of the time I'm talking to somebody who's on a really high frequency, and that's the only reason they're there, or they've got some new ideas, or I'm surrounded by my community, which is like similar level, or my family or my friends. And so I'm rarely in a situation where I'm dealing with like some low frequency energy. And I remember I was getting my hair cut a few months ago in the barber in London, and there was a guy next to me, and he was just talking rubbish with the barber. It wasn't even like bad. They were just talking about nonsense. And obviously 2 young men, and I'm just thinking, really, you guys don't have anything better to do? and I caught myself, and I'm like, wow, I'm reacting to this because the rest of my life is so pure that I don't involve anything around me. As soon as there's a whiff of negative vibes or low frequency or even not high frequency,
Just don't do it. Don't
yeah. And so I was like, whoa, you really are detached from this. Maybe that's good.
100%. And that frequency dynamic between people, whether you call it, I think social neuroscientists will call it the emotional economy or energetic economy. Like the theory does talk to this. Someone else's frequency will impact you. Why you want to be around that low frequency stuff? That, like people who have certain vices or they're addicted to certain hedonistic activities, or there's the sort of person who shaft their business partner for money. They put money over honor and these sorts of principles. You don't want to be around that. And I think as money becomes less important, your tolerance for being around low frequency people diminishes so drastically.
Yeah. And if people force you or cause you to behave in a low frequency way, you notice that as well. Like, if I have to get angry or if I have to say something, it's like, well, wait, what? It's hurting me more than it's hurting
100%,
them.
100%, and it lingers as well throughout the day.
Yeah.
I don't need that. That's what I love about tailoring. Man, it's so simple. My worst day as a tailor is, we're out of that fabric and the manufacturer said we have to wait for a few months to order it. So I have to explain to my clients, sorry brothers, we can't do that jacket that you wanted. That's as bad as it gets. Having been shelled and dealt with kidnaps and colleagues being killed and all sorts of mess. I will take that reality, bro. It's a real blessing. I wake up grateful every day.
What's it like when you're around high-profile people? I think you mentioned when you were around Andrew and Tristan Tate, security for them is no joke because they're dealing with a highly emotional public that's unpredictable.
100%.
I don't think you did security with them. I think you were just friends. But you said you've seen them in situations. I think you mentioned Andrew's quite well aware of his own security.
Both of them super switched on.
Really?
Yeah, super situationally aware. Absolutely. They carry themselves like security professionals. They have such professional paranoia, which is great. When you also then become very famous because you're a hard target, right?
Right.
But to your point, their fan base is so emotional, they just run at them. And this is years ago before they even hit that most Googled man sort of status that Andrew hit. Because their fans, their lives have changed so drastically, they're improved. Hundreds and hundreds of young men have run up to Andrew saying, oh, thank you so much for reason X. I'm making more money, I'm back in the gym, I've healed the issues I had with my dad thanks to listening to you. He has such a positive impact. And I think that's the difference between like sort of fans or viewers and actual real supporters. The Tates have real supporters, like guys who are like, you've changed my life. You are the father figure or older brother that I never had. I need to run up and I need to tell you thank you. The issue is both Andrew and Tristan don't really like being run up on.
Yeah, funny that.
So it's and rightly so, they've come from some pretty violent suburbs of both in Luton and over in the US in areas of Chicago where they grew up. So it is very interesting to see how that their arc has gone. But we want to talk about very high frequency people. They're the most high frequency people I've ever met. I don't fanboy on anyone. Again, I've had clients who are billionaires, oligarchs, royals. Obviously, I'll never talk about it. So
how do you get out of a rat race? How do you create wealth not only for yourself, but also for the generations to come after?
I am absolutely amazed with the quality of companies that we're getting exposure to.
We go on to Zoom calls with the innovators and the folks who are building new applications in metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized finance.
What's going on, everybody? Thumbs up if you can see me.
We are focusing on early stage investment.
And the quality of people that we're getting exposure to, whether it be Dan Tapiero with 1RT, Jason Ma from Open, Yatsu from Animoca.
It's been a phenomenal experience thus far. It has far exceeded my expectations.
We are focusing on cutting-edge technologies.
I view it now as the best investment I've ever made. The upside, I view, is unlimited.
And as a retail investor, I would never get this exposure anywhere else outside of Investment Club.
See you in the Investment Club.
I think I'll take, my interactions with such people to the grave, but I've never seen somebody as high frequency and high output physically and mentally as Andrew Tate and Tristan as well. Very unique intelligence, very different guys. 6 years ago, I said to them, after hosting them at one of my weapons and tactics facilities, you guys have a real role to play in masculinity, because that's when we're relaxing, talking. I said, some of these insights that you're sharing need to go out to the world. I'll do everything I can to assist, whatever look, I'm not a tough guy, but I have a lot of tough guys on my phone, let's put it that way. I have a lot of useful people around the world who I've built real relationships with. If I can support you getting your message out of traditional values and of motivating men to be capable, dangerous, but caring, old school traditional men, I'll do whatever I can. I didn't know they'd then become that famous, but it was very clear to me that their high frequency, their message, the insights they were able to channel would create and lead to a very clear sort of movement among reviving masculinity, if you will, in men today, and it played out over the following years.
Were they doing that actively in like 2000? You met them in like 18, 19?
Yeah, around then.
Okay.
I mean, I remember saying to both of them, guys, like, your messaging here will save a lot of lives, will improve a lot of lives, men and women. Feminists nowadays are like, where have all the good men gone? That is a cry for men who have traditional values, who are providers and protectors, even though feminists might not want to admit it. Andrew and Tristan Tate talk to that. They talk to men being capable, being accountable, putting in that huge amount of work to become the man and then take care of your people. That's their core message. And so I said, your message needs to get out to the world because it'll do so much good. And they said, yeah, when it's time, we'll do that. At the moment, at that point, they were building the brand, the cars, the YouTube videos. There was a joke, we do these YouTube videos, and they'd spend like $50,000 an episode, and they get like 10,000 views. So it's the most expensive per view YouTube channel on the planet. But obviously it worked. It grew over time and became the cultural sort of icon that Andrew and Tristan Tate are, through them saying, yeah, we're going to build the brand, we're going to use the flashiness, but then we're going to have this message of, essentially you could call it male empowerment. I know people might view that as a bad thing, but again, if we're in a world where most women, especially in the West, are saying, where have the good men gone? Male empowerment is necessary to make men feel accountable and duty-bound to become capable providers and protectors. And that's the core message of the brothers. So very interesting to observe over the years.
Yeah, it sounds like they were focused maybe in the 15s and 16s or earlier on building their businesses and their wealth, and then they made a conscious decision that, okay, we're going to go into the public sphere.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
And that's a scary decision to make. They probably didn't know what was coming.
That's exactly.
And of course, the sphere was also evolving at the same time. Like there weren't people maybe back in 15 or 16 they could point to and say, I'm going to become them, because it hadn't really evolved.
Well, I remember at one point Tate gave a sort of call out to Logan Paul, saying, hey, I'll fight you, you're looking for people to fight. And of course it didn't get any traction because Tate wasn't that big. Tate is now much more loved and real emotional supporters who are grateful to him than Logan Paul would ever be. Logan Paul was just an entertainment figure, as far as my read on these things. Same with Dan Bilzerian. Met the brother recently, spent time with him. I remember at one point we were talking about reaching out to Dan Bilzerian and the Tates spending time with Dan Bilzerian, but it didn't happen because the Tates weren't big enough. Tates have arguably become much bigger now. So it's really interesting to see that arc. And I think, again, I don't fanboy on any man, but I've been behind the scenes watching these brothers, Andrew and Tristan, consciously create this global fame movement. It's masterful. It's marketing and controlling, capturing and monetizing that attention economy.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.